मतलब सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल जो है वो 2030 तक कमिटमेंट है कि हम लोग खत्म करेंगे। हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने ये बोला हम उससे 5 साल पहले 2025 में खत्म कर देंगे। और that is what inspires organizations like us and many other people. We have to support what the government is doing. एक साथ काम करना चाहिए ताकि
The Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. We are delighted to host this event because 27% of people suffering from TB across the world are Indians. That means 1 out of every 4 TB patients globally happens to be in India. And on Sunday, it's going to be World TB Day. And for the first time nearly in 100 years, the union is organizing a meeting in October, November in Hyderabad. There's the recognition of the fact that India is home to 1/4 of the TB population, and the focus needs to be on India. They're going to get something like 6,000 people from all over the world to discuss this issue. To talk about what the union is doing to eradicate or reduce TB, AIDS and other lung diseases, we have a very distinguished panel with us this evening. Paula Fujiwara, she is the Scientific Director of the Union. We have Dr. Jamie Thompson, Regional Director of the Union, Southeast Asia Office. She is based in Delhi. Then we have Xerxes Sidwa, is the Director of the Health Office in USAID in New Delhi, India. And we have a TB survivor who is sitting on my left, Manasi Khade from Bombay. She is going to tell us about how she managed to get cured. TB, is seen as a stigma in India. I think because people think in the olden days people simply used to die of TB, but that's no more the case. TB can actually be cured, and we have a large number of people amidst us who have been cured successfully and they are living normal lives. So this needs to be spread across, and Amitabh Bachchan is doing a great job by going on radio and saying that TB is curable. You can go to the primary health center and get help. And India Jitega, he says, India will win in defeating TB. And the Prime Minister of India has said we will try to eradicate TB from India 5 years before the rest of the world eradicates it. That's a wonderful intention. The governments of Himachal Pradesh and Haryana said we want to finish it even before 2025. This is an absolutely remarkable development. So to tell us about what union is doing to reduce TB and other lung diseases, not just in India, across the globe. What are the activities they have undertaken? How big is the movement in India? They will brief us. May I now invite Dr. Paula Fujiwara. Manasi will speak first. All right, okay. Manasi is a TB survivor. So let us listen to her story, how she managed to defeat TB and get on with her life. Manasi.
My name is Manasi Khade and I'm an XDR-TB survivor. So it all started when I was in college, second year. I was 19 years old and I was having a pretty awesome life, to be honest, like a typical teenager. And suddenly, few days before my birthday, my doctor told me that you are not gaining weight. Can you just get thyroid test done? So I was okay with it. I was okay, the thyroid test has been done with it. But after the results came, it wasn't thyroid, it was something different. So my family doctor advised me to get a sputum test done and also the culture done. And as my family background had tuberculosis, like my dad suffered from tuberculosis, and my grandfather suffered from tuberculosis, so I actually initiated that let's go to a proper doctor. It's not like, because my dad had some weird experiences with the government hospitals. So we directly went to a good doctor, Dr. Varia. He took all care, like he got my diagnosis done properly, I got on medicines properly, I completed it, and it all went pretty well. But the sufferings are bad, like very bad. I just remember, like I just wanted to die at a certain point that I can't take this anymore. So the pain will go to the injection is, I cannot explain. Like, it's very, very bad. I was not able to sit properly, cannot talk to my friends. I had to take a drop off from my college because I had to complete the whole treatment. And also, I had to take out some part of my right lung. I had to go through that. But even after this, I had a pretty, like, I had this thing in my mind that I'm not giving up at all. Like, I'm going to complete this, I'm going to take it properly, and I'm just going to be done with it. So, as soon as my surgery was done, my doctor advised me to take a 6 months break, take a proper break, rest for some time, and then go back to the college. And I am someone who cannot just rest for 6 months. So, on the 3rd month, like after surgery, I went on trek. Even if my doctor advised not to take it, I just went there. And it went pretty well. It was a small trek, but I took all the medicines with me on track, and my brother was with me. He took most of that stuff because I was not able to walk properly with all the stuff, and that was well. So after doing that, I actually felt like this is not like TB is not going to stop me from doing anything. So I went back to college. Actually, I am lucky enough, maybe, which I'm a silver medalist from my college. So that went well. And after 6 months, I went on a rail adapter, a bike trip, which I was not supposed to do at all. Because the doctor told me not to run, not to take like gym, not to dance, because yeah, we are missing part of the dance. But come on, nobody's gonna say no to a rail adapter. So I went to the highest road of India, not even India, of the world. I went on a bike trip, and that went well. So TB has actually done nothing to me, just part of my life. That's it. And I'm happy. This is a very wrong statement, but I'm happy because of this. I know what to do in my life. I'm not going to waste my life. At a certain point when I thought that I'm going to die, it's not worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. So.
That's the brave lady speaking. The story clearly shows that you can survive and live a happy life. Congratulations.
Thank you.
May I now invite Paula?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. I have to say it's nice to be part of an overall discussion about this disease because we don't often get a chance to participate in this kind of event. So we just heard these very inspiring words of Mansi, and her presence here today is very important. More and more people are affected by tuberculosis, including survivors, and I'm very happy to say that we have many survivors in the audience today. And it gives us an opportunity to, for the journalists that are here to actually speak with them. But it gives voice to, these are the reasons. The people here that have suffered from tuberculosis is why we are here. So I just want to briefly build on what Mansi was expressing in a very personal way and talk to you about some of the political and scientific issues that are important to us today in defeating tuberculosis. Now today, tuberculosis is responsible for more deaths from an infectious disease than any other disease. We like to think that it's HIV, but it's no longer HIV. It's actually tuberculosis. And in 2017, this is the last year for which we have data, we estimate that 10 million people around the world actually have the disease of tuberculosis. And it's killed 1.6 million people annually. That is 4,400 people a day. And as is pointed out by Mr. Narayan, India has a big burden on this. And so in India alone, just 1,100 people die every single day from this disease. And you, survivors, are testament to the fact that you can be cured and live and you don't have to die. So why is it? Why is it that tuberculosis is actually something that is thriving? There are three main issues, I think. First of all, the germ that causes tuberculosis, it's almost a perfect organism. And when I say that, it means that the infection spreads from person to person, from coughing. So someone who's sick with tuberculosis coughs or sneezes, and you can become infected just from that. So we breathe in the tuberculosis without even knowing it. And unlike Ebola, which is a disease that we hear a lot about and there's a lot of publicity, our bodies are capable of actually keeping it in the body. It can be lived there for years. You may not get sick the next week. You may not get sick the next year. You may get sick many, many years later and not even know that you have it. So the second issue, and I think some of you who have survived this know, it's stigma. Those people who actually have developed tuberculosis, who contract it, maybe it's not their fault, but they're often stigmatized. I have found that in working with people with HIV, people are living positively with HIV, but no one talks about, and I think now it's changing, but living positively for the fact that we have survived tuberculosis. Because I think that's important to understand, that we need to get rid of the stigma. And what's important is that with HIV, what we say is we know our status. But in TB, we don't know our status. We don't know that we have free of infection, or we have infection, we have disease. We don't know any of that. And as pointed out by Mr. Narayan, is that 1/4 of the world's cases of tuberculosis in the world are actually here in India. But things are changing. Last year, September, the United Nations in New York had its first high-level meeting on tuberculosis. And now we have all the world's leaders, and that includes India. I'll say something more about that in a second, is that we've committed on paper to end tuberculosis by 2030. And that's in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, India, to its credit, has been pointed out, wants to do this by 2025. 5 years, and now we heard that even some of the states are going to go even faster. So the challenge here is going to be holding everyone accountable. They say they're going to do it, but what do we have to do to make sure that they actually do this? The challenge that we have is the medicines that we have, the way we diagnose tuberculosis, and the fact that we don't have a good vaccine is a real tragedy. So across the board, these tools that we have are weak, they're old, they're very inconvenient to have to take the medicines, and healthcare providers to have a major impact on this epidemic. So the result is that tuberculosis is going down too slowly. It only goes down by 1.5 to 2% a year, and we need it to go down much, much faster if we're going to end the tuberculosis epidemic by 2030. And the other issue is that we have this issue of drug-resistant tuberculosis. So the usual drugs that we can take don't work, sometimes don't work very well. I'll say more about that in a minute. But fortunately, we've had some good research in the last few years, and that can provide a foundation so we can have a TB-free world. If I had to put my bet on any one tool, that would be a vaccine. Now, we have a vaccine. I know that almost all of you in this room have had it. It's called what? BCG. It's given to babies. The first vaccine that children get is the BCG vaccine. But this vaccine is almost 100 years old. And it doesn't work very well. It doesn't, even in children. It only works if you have tuberculosis in the brain or tuberculosis all over your body. The regular tuberculosis, it actually doesn't work, and it doesn't provide the protection in adults. But fortunately, we have 2 important drug trials that are providing optimism that there's a new vaccine that's actually going to be coming into play. One of them says that there's a new vaccine. It's produced by GlaxoSmithKline. It's going to be, it has been shown so far that is preventing active disease in 54% of adults. Now, as a healthcare provider at 54%, is that good enough? It's not good enough because we need a vaccine that's like more like in the 90, 95% range, but this is a good start. And even when you have a 54% effective vaccine, it means a lot of people are not going to get tuberculosis. But for people to actually get a result from these developments, the countries have to be prepared to roll out new vaccine approaches, and the money has to be available to bring these to market. Now we've seen some developments in the last few years. Last 5 years, there have been 2 new drugs. I'll name them. Maybe some of you have had to take them: bedaquiline, melanonide. But 2 new drugs, that's not enough. We need regimens because you never treat tuberculosis with 1 drug. We know you took many, many drugs in order to get tuberculosis. All of you didn't take 1 drug. You took many drugs to cure your tuberculosis. And the other issue is that we have to also get drugs to address extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. And that's something. Now we do know those 2 drugs that I just mentioned. Just last week, it took all this time. They've been around for the last 5 years. It was just last week where it said that, oh, you can now use these 2 drugs together. Before you weren't supposed to use them together, but now it's been approved to do that. But what do? We need, is WHO, the World Health Organization says we need 18 new medications, not just 2. And we need to have them in combinations. Now this is very promising, but it's not enough. Nowhere near enough. The funding that we need to do research is way too low for what we need. We calculate in the TB community that we need $2 billion per year. And what do we have? In 2017, we had $772 million. Well, that's a lot of money. It's the most we've ever had, but we're 2/3 of the way short. So we really need to do much more. Now, most of this research so far has come from countries like the United States, from Europe, but we need to have the step up from the countries, what we call the BRICS countries, and that includes India. So China, Brazil, Russia, and India, South Africa need to really step up and give more to research. The investment is worth the cost. Let me give you a statistic about India. There's going to be a report coming out on Wednesday called the Lancet Commission on Tuberculosis, and they found that even if you use the best tools that you have right now to their maximal use here in India, tuberculosis deaths will still cost the national economy $32 billion per year for the next 30 years. And that's if we have we use the tools that we have now. So it means we really need to have the new tools. So last year at the UN General Assembly, the governments from around the world said we're going to deal with tuberculosis and we're going to really fund the TB research. So I'm very proud to say that here in India, the funds for tuberculosis program has actually doubled in recent years. And also India is playing a very important role in doing global research. I'd like to end by just saying a couple words from, there's a United Nations envoy, this person, Dr. Gooseby, who's the envoy for tuberculosis globally. And last year at the World Health Conference of the Union in The Hague, he said the following: tuberculosis is preventable, tuberculosis is treatable, tuberculosis is curable. And eliminating tuberculosis, ending this emergency, is doable within our lifetime. So this is what we have to work towards, and I hope we're going to hear from Jamie about what's actually some of the things that are actually being done here in this country, which is so important because we have 1/4 of those cases here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. May I now invite Jamie to, she's based in Delhi. She works for the union. She's actually from Manipur, but she has lots of experience and she will tell us what's going on here. Jamie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narayan. I think Mansi and Paula set the context for what I want to say today. Mansi is sharing her story global, Paula giving us a big picture, and what I want to focus really is on what the union does in India. And because we're talking about lead up towards TB, I focus most of my talk on TB. So the work of the union in India, it's very much guided by what we do in the rest of the world. We mainly in three principles, that is to know, share, and act. And by that I mean we are invested in generating evidence that the information of which is disseminated widely. One way of us doing that is through the annual conference we have. The other way is through the publications, through international journals that we publish, for example. And then acting, and I think the last is the act is really what we focus on in India through the many projects that we implement to improve, to address health challenges, to protect and improve the health of people and the communities. How do we go about this? Our approach is really to complement the government of India's efforts, because we know that there are larger players and larger stakeholders that are in play here. But we also know that there are gaps that need to be filled in this. So typically this may mean, for example, that we are providing the outreach services that's required to reach the people in the most remote, in the most difficult areas of India, targeting people who are the most vulnerable and marginalized. So this is what we do through Project Akshaya, which is a global fund supported project in India. We are present in 128 districts across India. We work with over 200 community-based organizations and thousands of community volunteers who go home, make home-to-home visits, make sure people who have TB symptoms are identified. They get the test that they need in the quality assured lab, and if they turn out to have TB, then we make sure that they are started on treatment. So we do this, and I'm very happy that many of our partners are here today that have acknowledged the support in that. To give you a sense of what we achieved through this project, some data I would like to present. So in last year, in 2018, the project reached over 6.5 million people. We identified and tested over 118,000 people for TB and had placed more than 24,000 TB patients on treatment. This means by doing this, we are promoting earlier case diagnosis, preventing countless infections. As you heard, it's an airborne disease and the disease spreads. And also, importantly, we are mitigating catastrophic costs that we see on TB where we talk a lot about now. How are you providing service earlier, cutting down the delays in diagnosis and treatment, and thereby mitigating the huge cost that many patients will incur because of this illness. So while this is an example of a project being delivered, services being delivered, I do also want to say that for us to be able to do this kind of work, we need to secure the political will. And I think the union are very happy with the support from USAID that we got to implement through the Challenge TV, which is the USAID's flagship global mechanism for funding TB control all over the world. The union leads that, and we implemented what is called a call to action for a TB-free campaign. And through that, what we were really trying to do was mobilize wide variety of stakeholders to really bear on to the government, the policy makers, the influencers, to demand and sustain a domestic commitment to MTB in India. So, Mr. Narayan mentioned Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, for example. So he was the ambassador. We came together and worked through this campaign as an ambassador for TB-free India, prepared videos and many other things that now the government uses it to talk about TB. We had Mr. Ratan Tata, very well known industrialist, and I think consequent to that his engagement in the dialogues that occurred during that time, and subsequently they went on to form what is called the India Health Fund. And I must say that all those initiatives, getting all these people on board, or getting all these celebrities and very important people interested in TB, that happened because of the efforts made at USAID, and especially because the USAID people were able to convince, who was the ambassador there, Mr. Richard Verma, to get interested in TB. He did the outreach on our behalf, opened the doors for us to go and talk to them about TB, and once they knew what the issue was, they were indeed very, very interested and really contributed a lot to the work that we do. Also related to the call to action for TB-free India, I want to stress that in all events that are being held under that banner, TB survivors have been really at the forefront in the centerpiece. And so, like we see Nancy here and many other TB survivors here today, we always make that a point, not because we like to see them in this event, but because we think they are the most powerful speakers, the ones who can convey from their own life experience, especially to audiences that don't know TB. I think I can make maybe 30-yard PowerPoint presentations and most technical presentations. Your message is very unlikely to lay people, definitely not as effective as somebody like Nancy would be able to convince people. So we acknowledge the presence of the people here, like Ola said, and we're very happy that all of you are here. To give you an indication of what all this led to, I think many times we get asked, so what, right? Including from our donors. And I'm very happy to say that we now have 17 corporate partnerships that have been mobilized. These are the oil and gas companies that have nothing to do with TB, but who've shown interest in TB. They are now implementing projects on TB, some of them on smaller scale, but some of them on big scale, like an example of Haryana, where a private health sector company, Medanta, has decided they're partnering with the government. They've launched TB-free Haryana mission. So that's huge, I think, for just even one corporate partner. Also, the India TB Caucus, which is basically a gathering of 31 parliamentarians were formed consequent to this. They have been very active in the past, especially in the dialogue leading up to the UN high-level meeting that Paula referred to. They were in New York participating in the parliamentary consultation. Prior to that, they were in the WHO political meeting in Moscow. So it's not just that they fought and sat here, but they contributed at a global level. And importantly, in their own constituencies here, which we heard examples of Himachal and Haryana Pradesh, and those are real examples of how members of the Indian TB Caucus went back to their states, mobilized the state legislative assembly members to get interested in TB, their Panchayati Raj institutions to get interested in TB. The Chief Minister of Haryana announced a scheme, the Social Security Scheme. What's Social Security? A social program for people with TB patients where they provided nutritional support. So these are real actions that we see happening in the involvement of parliamentarians. And the other output I would like to talk about is really the role of Rotary. Rotary, as many of us know, they were the ones that really helped drive the end to polio in India. And so they have now formed the National Committee of the Rotarians, the National Committee to end TB in India. It's headed by Mr. Y.P. Das, a very dynamic leader. They have already done lots of work at the national level and also through the work done through Rotarian members in all the districts that they are present in. We're hoping that they will do many more there. I would also like to say that besides TB, we do a lot of work on tobacco and other lung health issues, but there are materials around that in your press kits and also in the other materials that are being circulated for this, so I won't talk about there. And before I end, I would like to say we've done a lot of work. We're very proud of all the work that we do here, but I think we also realize the enormous challenges that still lie ahead of us. And there are things that we can do that together much more effectively if we all partner with each other. And so I think that's the approach we'd like to see moving forward. We're also very happy that the Union's World Conference of Lung Health is coming to Hyderabad this year in October. I think it happened in 1957 once, and so in our lifetimes probably that's never happened here. This is where the burden is, this is where the problem is, and we're going to see a lot of people gathered there today, gathered there then, and we look forward to working with all of you in this room to make the most of that and to do our bit in ending the emergency, which is the theme of the conference in India, the region, and globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm sure by the time the conference takes place, you can collect a few millions or billions of dollars because Azim Premji has allocated $21 billion. Nanda Nilekani, Narayan Murthy, Subha Mukhi, the number of billionaires in India is growing faster than any other country in the world. So if only you approach them, I'm sure they will come up. May I now invite Xerxes Sidwa. Actually, he's from the US, but works for US AID. Please tell us about what you guys have been doing to help eradicate TB in our part of the world. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Narayan. And it's a pleasure to be here today at this press conference. And so, as Mr. Narayan was saying, the United States Agency for International Development has been working in India, partnering with the government of India for the last 50 or 60 years. And we really look at this as a government-to-government partnership between the US and India. And it is a very strong partnership between US and India. And the idea is for us to really work together to see gaps that are mutually identified and figure out new ways of approaching those gaps. And what I'd like to think of, with USAID is that it's really the business of ideas. And we're working together to really understand what are the bottlenecks and challenges in India that the government has identified. How do we then identify new ways of doing business? And as a donor, we work through different partners. The union is here, one of our partners. We also have 15 other partners that we work with on TB. And really looking at how do we identify these new ways of doing business? How do we demonstrate models that can actually work? How do we also ensure that there's a rigorous monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework? And then if that's successful, how do we then work closely with government to then take it to scale across India? And I think what's very important as we're talking about the numbers in India, if we're to make a dent in the global TB burden, we have to start in India. And a win for India is actually a win for the world. And so this is at USAID is at the heart of what we're trying to do through this partnership, especially in an issue like tuberculosis that is very complex. Even though it is a preventable and a curable disease, we still have one person dying every 1 minute from tuberculosis. And this is unacceptable. And I think we've seen in India that there is a bold commitment from the government of India to really end TB by 2025. This is from the highest levels of the Prime Minister, followed by a very bold national strategic plan that's really well written to say how do we move together to end TB in India. And part of the work that USAID is doing is working closely with the government of India to really look at how do we identify these new ways of doing business, but also look at what does the component of ending TB mean. And part of it is also, for me at USAID, what's been very exciting is as we partner, it's also working on some of the medicalized response, but really looking at how do you build systems and processes. We talked earlier about the new drug bedaquiline, working with the government to do a donation program to introduce bedaquiline in India, but also working with different institutions to strengthen the capacity so that they can actually make this drug more available to the population. But I think what's more important for me, and I think very proud of the work that we're doing together with the government of India, is the work on the non-medicalized response part of it. Really looking at the social determinants and the barriers that are preventing people from either accessing treatment early, but also completing treatment. And so this is some of the work that I think Jamie's already spoken about with the call to action for TB-free India, where we work to really move from just TB being a facility approach to understanding if you're really going to end TB, you have to really look at the other factors that may prevent people from accessing quality care and completing that care. And so the call to action was also, a big part of it was raising awareness and really getting folks to understand that it is not just the medical issues or the lack of medicines that could be an issue, but it's about how do we feel that people are comfortable enough because of the stigma to actually come forward and say, I need to seek treatment. I am okay with understanding that this is not a issue that needs to be stigmatized, that everyone has TB. Everyone from the richest to across the spectrum has suffered from TB or has someone in their family that has suffered from TB. And so how do we start to talk about that? How do we start to mainstream that is very important. I think part of the work we're also doing is really trying to work together to understand how the role of private providers plays in understanding TB. A lot of people in India seek services and diagnosis through the private sector? And how do we make sure that those people that are seeking services in the private sector have access to quality services and better diagnosis? So those are the areas that we're also working in to make sure about that. And then making sure people are aware of what is offered to them through different types of patient schemes. I have met many people across India who suffer from TB who have actually spent tens of thousands of rupees, if not more, lakhs of rupees, actually trying to move to get treated from tuberculosis through different systems. And so I think that's the issue of how do you look at reducing these very high, that one organization, anyone can't do it alone. You have to really bring in these types of coalitions. And it's coalitions of parliamentarians, coalitions of private sector providers, coalitions of, I think the most important is the community also taking a really big ownership of the work they can do and really leading us to find what are those right solutions and ensuring that their voice is being heard so that we're ensuring that the programs we're all designing at USAID but also the government of India meet the needs of what the communities want. And so that's been a very big focus of us at USAID. And I think finally what Jamie also mentioned, it's also getting the corporate sector involved. The government of India has allocated big resources. But how can you use the role of the private sector and the corporate sector more strategically to find gaps and fund those gap areas? And I think that's been something at USAID that we've really tried to look at, is to ensure that corporates play a more strategic role in the TB response. Where we've started working with a range of different corporates and where we're actually just launching a new TB pledge initiative where we're ensuring that corporates can get involved through a tiered system to fight TB, from being a member that can start at a silver level, for example, where they can identify a workplace policy, where they can be committed to making sure their members of their team, their factories are aware that TB exists, all the way to becoming a diamond member where you can actually pledge corporate resources and become a champion to end TB. And so this is something, again, with the government of India that we're very excited to start to show how we can play a more strategic role. So in conclusion, I think the US government through USAID is committed to standing by the government of India and working together to identify gaps and barriers to ensure that people have access to quality TB treatment and care. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Justice. We now have question and answer session. May I have the first question? Paula, the BCG treatment is 100 years old and it's primarily to cure little babies, and they don't work on adults. So recently I've been reading in the newspapers that new drugs, vaccines are coming up, and the old treatment takes 20 months to cure a patient. Now the new vaccine is going to treat patient in 9 months flat. That's very encouraging news. India is producing drugs to cure people from AIDS, and we are manufacturing them, supplying them cheaply. How do you rate the chances of India producing this vaccine and making it available not only to patients in India, but globally?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think that there are two issues here. One is the vaccine, which is going to be the most important thing for the addressing tuberculosis. You also mentioned the whole issue of actually drugs and treatment regimens. So in here, it's different from the vaccines, but it's a very vital part of the equation. So WHO, until recently, just last week actually, WHO has had a 20 to 24-month regimen, and now the union has just published a trial where we got the treatment of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis to 9 months. Now, is that the total solution? No, because we need to get better drugs. We need to be able to have an all-oral regimen, because this one still has an injection in it. But we're working on that. So actually, part of the studies that we're going to do, or in the process of doing, is to make sure that we have medications that we can use. Now, can India produce those? Absolutely. India has a strong history of producing generic drugs from the drugs that have been manufactured and giving an affordable solution. So I predict that with time, when there are patent issues, etc., but that India will be in the forefront, as it always has been, in producing many of the drugs that we use for the treatment of all kinds of tuberculosis, but also with the new types of tuberculosis.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, please take the microphone.
सर मेरा नाम धन सिंह है और मैं बादल चाहता हूँ और मुझे तीसरी बार टीबी हुई है। तो पहले मैं जब पहली बार हुई तो उस टाइम मैंने प्राइवेट डॉक्टर से इलाज करवाया और जब दूसरी बार हुई तब भी मैंने करवाया। इस बार तीसरी बार भी मैं पहले प्राइवेट डॉक्टर के पास में गया तो उसका खर्चा मुझे ना भारी लगा बहुत ज़्यादा। ठीक है, एक बंगाली डॉक्टर तो उससे मिला मैं, बोले डॉक्टर साहब ये जो टीबी की बीमारी है इसका खर्चा मुझे तो भारी पड़ रहा बहुत ज़्यादा और मैं इसको ना उठा नहीं सकता ना। तो उन्होंने इस लड़के का मुझे नाम दिया कि आप उनके पास चल जाओ और वो आपको साथ लेके जाएंगे। तो उन्होंने मेरे टेस्ट करवाए और 18 फरवरी से मेरा इलाज चालू है। और सर इस बीमारी के बारे में और आगे के लिए जो क्या क्या कदम उठाए जाएंगे और इस चीज़ के लिए और क्या क्या साधन जुटाने पड़ेंगे तो उसके लिए बताया जाएगा। धन्यवाद।
You can summarize that.
Yes. He says this is the third time he has this problem, and every time he went to a doctor, then he didn't get okay. Second time he went, same thing happened. Third time he went to somebody and he said, okay, he advised that he takes the guy in light blue shirt. He will take him to.
He is our community volunteer basically.
Yeah. Will you please use the microphone and what are community volunteers? There are 15,000 of them in India. So the work you guys are doing, you should educate
Basically,
people.
he regularly meets with the quakes also. Where TB patients sometimes go for the treatment, and quakes forward that TB patients, presumptive TB patient to our community volunteer. And he did the test, and after that started the treatment for the patients.
Can I say something? I think what is so important is that with tuberculosis we medicalize it too much. So the role of civil society, of community, is extremely important. And I come from a public health background, so for many years I thought, oh, public health, that's the answer. It is part of the answer. So the fact that we have a community volunteer, that we have people helping is really, really key.
Every second TB patient tends to go to a private doctor, and we don't have adequate data about those people. So some of them, they never get registered and get into become a part of the data bank and all that. You were saying that India is losing $32 billion every year because X number of people are suffering from TB and 1,100 people are dying of TB every day. And you are doing your work in 128 districts out of 600 odd districts. How come the other districts have not received your attention? Do you have a lot of cases of TB in these 125 districts? What is the basis of your choosing, and when are you going to reach out to the people in other districts of India, and what needs to be done to make sure that everybody who has a problem with the TB receives the kind of attention it must deserve?
Thank you very much for that comment and question, Mr. Narayan. I totally agree with you. If we had all the resources and the means we had, we should be doing this throughout the country, right? But I think we never have enough money ever. So then we have to set priorities on what's best. And I think this was a strategic decision done with the government of India, because So all the money that we get for doing this project of share work is through Global Fund. Global Fund had a pot of money that they said they were going to give to India. We divided between HIV/AIDS, malaria, TB, and within TB, they decided that you know what your problems are, you decide how you're going to allocate this piece of money to whoever. So I think as a country, our biggest problem is really what is called the missing TB cases. So we estimate we miss around 1 million TB cases. So the incidence estimate is 2.7 million. The new and relapse cases, these are the new TB cases that occur every year, is 1.7. So that difference is around 1 million cases. Where are they? They are in the community, not knowing they have TB symptoms or not able to access the services that they need. They are, like Khalid shared, in the private sector, they are seeking care there, maybe to the right doctor, not the right doctor, getting all kinds of tests. Even when they get tests and treated, they may not be notified to the government, so they count there. And the third place, which simplistically, which I put is, in the public healthcare sector, if you go to a hospital like AIMS, their OPD, there is no way you can systematically screen everybody coming there to their TB symptoms. Right from your OPD to the testing, making sure they have to come 2 times with TB test. Return the next morning with a sample. So there are leakages everywhere till the time you start on treatment, even if you're diagnosis. So I mean, it's becoming rather long, but in all these scheme of things, as a country, with the government and the Global Fund, we decided X amount we'll put for working in the community, X amount for private sector. And so because of that resource allocation, we were able to stretch this service to 128 districts. In the past, I must say that it was 300 districts. This time with the new grant that started in January 2018, came down to 128 districts.
मैं देखता हूँ यहाँ काफी जवान लोग हैं जो टीबी से बच गए और अपना कहानी कोई सुनाना चाहता है तो बेशक आप हिंदी में बोल सकते हैं, काफी लोग समझ पाएंगे। धन्यवाद। अपना नाम बोलिए फिर अपना कहानी सुनाइए।
गुड इवनिंग ऑल ऑफ यू। मेरा नाम साहिल है और मैं HIV पॉजिटिव हूँ 11 साल की उम्र से और मैं अब 35 प्लस हो चुका हूँ। मैं टीबी से मैं 2 बार सफ़र कर चुका हूँ। एक बार मेरा नॉर्मल टीबी हुआ था तो मैंने अराउंड 8 मंथ के करीब जो है मैंने ट्रीटमेंट लिया और मैं उसके बाद पूरा हो गया मेरा। सेकंड, मुझे आज से 7 इयर्स पहले MDR टीबी हुआ बोन में और मैं पैरालिसिस हो गया। उसके बाद जो है मेरा अराउंड 2.5 साल के करीब पूरा ट्रीटमेंट चला MDR का और आज मैं सही समय पे सही वक्त से दवाई लिया मैंने, एक पॉजिटिव सोच रखी और पैरालिसिस के बाद मेरा 3 मेजर ऑपरेशन हुआ, इम्प्लांट लगा हुआ है मेरे पीछे, लेकिन आज मैं अपने पैरों पे चल रहा हूँ। तो मैं सभी सर्वाइवल से यही कहूँगा कि मैं तो एक HIV पॉजिटिव के साथ साथ भी TB पेशेंट हूँ मैं, बट मैं जब क्योर हो सकता हूँ अपने जज्बे के साथ और वक्त के साथ दवाई लेकर के, तो बहुत सारे जो हमारे और लोग हैं नॉर्मल हैं सिर्फ TB से सफ़र कर रहे हैं तो वो तो और भी जल्दी क्योर हो जाएंगे। तो टाइम टेबल से दवाई लें और अपना ध्यान रखें। तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि TB को हराना एक जो हमारे मोदी जी का और हम सभी लोगों का सपना है वो कोई मुश्किल होगा।
Follow what he is saying. Yeah. Anybody? Yes, please.
I think it's so moving to hear someone who is living positively with the HIV. Remember, I said the stigma with TB, and yet we have people with HIV who are saying, "I am HIV positive, and I'm living with it." And this is something that we have to do more with TB, right? I have survived tuberculosis, and I am here to tell my story. So thank you very much for sharing that.
No, I just would like to add what Sahil said. The Union India Office is proud to be associated with the organization like Sahil is heading and some of them are heading. And we are working very closely with such organizations who are in the community. They are the people who are reaching out to the households, knocking the door, each and every household in the slums, in the difficult area. If somebody is coming out they are actually giving the message of TB. And if there are any symptomatics, they are saying that, can I help you in either sending for the diagnostic facilities or collect your sputum and transport to somewhere quickly so that you can get diagnosed quickly and you can start the treatment. So they are really the champions who are engaged in Delhi, in those areas, slum area, migrated area, helping the union, the Akshay project in reaching out to so many. So thank you so much for
Absolutely wonderful. Let us give a big hand to all our young friends, TB survivors who are helping to fight this disease which kills more people than any other disease on the planet. And so I want to say thank you very much for all the participants, and by way of appreciation, we're going to give you a present, a mug specially designed for the 60th anniversary of our club. And I want to thank all of you, and I want to congratulate you for all the tremendous work you are doing. जो काम आप कर रहे हैं बहुत काबिल तारीफ है, और मैं आप सब लोगों को शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूँ.
Small announcement, we request nobody to leave because we're going to do a group photo together.
Thank you, Mr. Narayan. That's a special
Thank you very much, friends. They are going to be with us, and please move to the bar, grab a drink, and
Yeah, side please.
You don't want anybody standing at the back line.